Well, the board is just lit up. The board is lit up because we've got one of the greatest living actors in the world on the phone here. He never does these things. And he's got this phenomenon, this tsunami of a hit movie opening. Actually, it opened last night at midnight around the country. And if you've seen it in one of these shows, do call in. 1-866-509-RANT is the number. Dying to know how much you liked it. If it lives up to the hype. Does Heath Ledger live up to the hype? Is Gary Oldman the best actor or not? Let's admit it, folks. And we've got him on the line here, Gary. Gary, you and I talked privately about this. The public has no idea that when you're shooting a film, they think that you all get there and shoot it in exactly the order in which they see it. But that's not the case, is it? You sometimes have the hardest thing to do at the weirdest hours with no one around.
Yeah, sometimes you shoot the end of a movie. You shoot the end of the movie at the beginning of a film, the beginning in the middle, and there's no continuity. It's all over the place. And there's a big scene at the end of Batman, and it's in a sort of an abandoned warehouse. Burned out building. And I don't want to really give anything away for the people that have not seen the movie, but it's quite an emotional scene, and it's with my family, it's with my kids. And of course they have rules for children who work in movies. They have to be taken away to be schooled. They can only work so many hours a day. So, you find yourself performing a very heavy, very emotional scene, and it's 4:00 in the morning, and you're on a sort of blanket with the damp coming through, and you're cold, and you can see your breath on the air, and you're tired, and you haven't eaten very well, and then of course the person that you're doing the scene with is only 11 years old, so he's left already. He's in bed, and you're doing the scene, an emotional scene, to a stand-in.
Gary, we've got some callers, and in the limited time we've got, I'd love for you to talk to someone. I know you love interacting with the public.
I do.
You're famous for it. Let's go to Joe in Santa Barbara. Joe, you're on the phone with Gary Oldman on the Dennis Miller Show.
Wow, what an honor and a privilege. Mr. Oldman, I am a huge fan.
Oh, thank you, Joe. Thank you.
And I have to ask you a couple questions. Number one, what was your zany inspiration for the country accent in Fifth Element?
My inspiration for that was Ross Perot meets Bugs Bunny.
I love it.
That's absolutely true.
And that is so awesome.
Do you have another question, Joe?
I do. Between roles like More Beloved and Dracula and just everything you've ever done, how do you choose the roles that you get?
It's some you go after, some of it you can engineer, but mostly you're at the mercy of what comes in, and they kind of find me rather than me finding them.
Joe, thanks for calling. Joe, you there still?
Yeah.
You got to buy a phone made in America next time. I promise you.
If you're ever in Santa Barbara, Mr. Oldman, come by Santa Barbara Roasting Company. I'd love to buy you a cup of coffee.
Okay. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. Let's go to another call in Santa Barbara, which is Jamie. Jamie in Santa Barbara, you've got a question for Gary Oldman.
Yes, I do, Gary. What an honor to speak to you. I'm one of your biggest fans. A couple of my favorite movies where you gave outstanding performances, State of Grace, and you already mentioned The Professional. I mean, that was mind-blowing.
Oh, yeah, State of Grace is a good one.
Yes. My question to you is, it's about your directorial debut, and I don't think you've directed any other movies, if I'm not mistaken, but Nail by Mouth is it's a little-known movie, but one of the most visceral, filthy films I've ever seen. And in fact, I got it in my house from Blockbuster right now. It took me a while to get it. You had to go through the mail service to get it because you can't find a copy of this film anywhere in any store. But can you talk a little bit about that, and maybe if you have any other plans to get behind the camera?
It's nearly 10 years ago, I suppose, I directed Nail by Mouth. It was just something, I always say, it was 30 years in development, and it took me 5 weeks to shoot. At least, 5 weeks to write and a couple of months to shoot. There are plans. I mean, I've been planning to direct again, and I've been a little distracted with this acting thing and bringing up two boys. But there are a couple of things actually in the air. We're thinking about a couple of things.
Anything else there, Jamie?
Yeah, where did that story come from? I mean, it's filthy.
The story of Neil by Mouth. Well, it's partly sort of semi-autobiographical. It's partly it was all shot and based where I grew up in South London. So some of it was a lot of it's made up. I just had it sort of bubbling around in my head, and I was lucky enough to finally get it down on get it on celluloid.
Jamie, thanks for calling the Dennis Miller Show and speaking with Gary Oldman. Gary, you've talked about this in interviews in recent weeks, about the detour of being a father and how important that has been for you when the boys were young and growing into towards adolescence, and that has been a part of it, hasn't it?
Well, really, that's been the main part of it. I mean, that's been my production. I've sort of been in production for the last 10 years with these two kids.
See, I don't think people think that movie actors have normal lives where you help them with homework and do lunch and drive to school.
You
and
want to
things.
be around to be able to do that. So, I mean, the last couple of years, it may not look like it, but I've been lucky enough not to work as much as I used to, at least not travel as much as I used to, because And
at least you're traveling to nicer places. Chicago's pretty easy.
Oh, Chicago is a wonderful town. I mean,
Speaking of Chicago, Gary, we've got one last call I think we can squeeze in before we leave you, and that's John in Chicago. John, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Thank you guys
John.
so much. It's Gary. First time I've heard you in an interview. I'm an enormous fan.
Thank you.
I loved you in you're welcome. I loved you in Sid and Nancy, but then when I saw you in Dracula, I just thought you took that role to a completely other level. And my question is, to go from, well, first of all, you did the accent, and it sounded so natural. You never got a sense of kitschiness from it. And the other thing you did that was amazing to me, and it's so rare you see this, you played the old, desiccated Dracula with so much passion, but yet so old. You really, you felt the age and the hundreds of years of pain. Are you classically trained? Are you method? Do you do a combination? Because to me, it's like one of the great performances. I turned so many people onto that performance, and they just sit there and they say, "Oh my God!" I say, "Yeah, you totally missed that movie, didn't you?" In the '90s, one of the best performances I've ever seen. Period.
Well, that's very kind of you. I don't know. I guess I kind of have my own method, really. Some would call it method, I guess. I don't know if I was classically trained, but I was certainly, my whole history, my beginnings were in the theatre. So that sense of theatricality, which I think the role needed, is certainly there. But you take each role as they come in, and they all set up their own particular sort of hurdles that you have to jump over. And I worked with an accent teacher on Dracula. And actually, funny thing is that I heard a voice when I read that script. I heard a voice that I couldn't physically do, and that was one of the rare occasions that I worked with an opera singer. On Dracula to lower my voice. I wanted to sort of lower my voice. I got it almost an octave lower than my normal speaking voice for Dracula. And you don't always need to do that much work on a role. But and of course the writing was there and the story. So that's a bonus when the writing is good.
Well, Gary, you're and thank you, by the way, Joe, for calling the Dennis Miller Show.
Thank you.
Gary, we're gonna leave you because I know you have a lot of stuff to do.
I've got a ton of stuff.
I want to tell everyone you got to go see Batman. Get your tickets. You'll want to see it twice. All the great themes of friendship, loyalty, one man making a difference, belief in yourself, belief in people you trust, belief in the good of the members of society, wanting a better life for yourself and those around you. It's all there in Batman. It's not just a cartoon movie. And my dear friend Gary Oldman has graciously spent the past 45 minutes with us here on the Dennis Miller Show. Gary, I love you, and I thank you for being here. And I'll see you. I'll see you in the casino.
I'll see you around.
I'll see you on the jet.
Yeah.
Thank
you, Douglas.
Thank you. I'll talk to you later. Ladies and gentlemen, Dennis Miller Show. Douglas Urbanski filling in. 1-866-509-RAND is the number. We're going to get to your calls after this.